what did we actually know about Jesus Christ the man? What we don't find is this person who appears as some sort of spectre within that historical tableau called Jesus. He doesn't have a mark at all. Now that is a dilemma for those who believe in him, because on the one hand he supposedly overturned the world. It turned the world upside down and triggered off this massive movement, but on the other hand he leaves no trace in the historical record. It should be said, although it's kept from the believing millions, theologians have cast doubts on the official story for more than 100 years. There used to be a huge amount of evidence, historical evidence for Jesus. There was evidence of the cross, there was evidence of the nails that he was held to the cross with. You know, now, why is it that this sort of evidence is no longer presented as evidence of Jesus? It worked for hundreds of years. Well, of course, we know the answer. It was all fraudulent. It was all manufactured by the church to encourage belief in their fairy story. Now, that has all now been whittled away, apart from certain backwaters. The Gospels are not analogous to history, they are analogous to historical fiction. In other words, a drama has been inserted into an historical setting. The emphasis is totally different. It's an unreal drama. If you think about the Gospels, they are almost primarily concerned with the last week of Jesus' life, the Passion. You know, that takes up most of the material. It is simply a drama inserted into a more or less realistic historical background. What I think we can say regarding the Gospels is that they show a decided pro-Roman bias. Let's paint the scene then. Rome is the great and emerging imperial power. It colonised the East as the Eastern Empire of Greece declined. In the areas it took over, it used, in the first phase, client kings. In other words, it found those members of the local aristocracy that would collaborate with Rome, and they would happily do so because Rome preserved their position. So the classic example of it is, of course, the Herodian family. Herod was a Roman puppet, but Herod ruled his own provinces in his own way and with a rod of iron. Religion was very important in the Roman world. Although they had a secular dimension to their life, religion was all pervasive in the sense that gods and their shrines were everywhere. There was no question in the minds of nearly everybody at that time that there were gods. Gods made their presence felt all the time, whether it be in earthquakes or thunderstorms, in diseases and so on. Gods were ever present. The one thing you had to do with a god was keep them on your side. You made a sacrifice, you hoped that their capricious behaviour wouldn't fall badly on you. Religion also was very tolerant in the Roman system. The Romans and all polytheists embraced the idea that that divinity was divided, that there were gods of many different descriptions. When the Romans conquered a province, they didn't try and annihilate their religion. They didn't insist that they adopt Rome's religion. They merely took that religion into their system. They merely assimilated it, allowing that what you call a god by one name, we call by another name. And they had no problem with that. If you think of the most impressive temple that stands in Rome, the Pantheon, it was the temple to all the gods. They had no exclusivity about it. You had to keep all the gods, or as many of them as you could, on your side. Now, the only time that Rome seems to have had a problem are the two ends of the empire, with the Druids in Britain and the Jews in Palestine. You know, that's where the Rome came against oppositional religions. Now, with the Druids, they just annihilated the Druids. They destroyed their shrines and ended it probably existed underground, but essentially they erased that religion. Now, this was the big problem for Judaism when it fell foul of Rome as a result of not one but 3 rebellions. You know, things Jewish were not viewed favourably. And that's why here is a big kickstart for Christianity moving further into the Roman world. Now, where does that originate? It originates in the happy example for the Jews of resisting and ultimately expelling the Greeks. The Greeks had run the area before the Romans arrived, and under a group of renegade priests, there was a rebellion known as the Maccabee Rebellion. In the Maccabean Wars, the Greeks were expelled, and this gave a type, an anticipation of how, under the Roman period, also someone could come along, priest come king come prophet, who would rescue the Jews again. That's where the basis of the messianic prophecies come from. A military leader, a human person, not a God man, but a human who would lead the Jews to triumph. So their interpretation of Messiah was very much in that traditional Maccabean sense of someone who would be a king and a military leader who would throw out the oppressors. The Christian version of that same story is, of course, very different. It's a collaborationist sort of Messiah.